something feels off about the NBA.
Why did the NBA decide to do an in-season tournament?
There has to be a funeral for the NBA. It's special on Christmas Day because these ratings are absolutely atrocious.
Is it dead? Is it NFL that much of a better product? What's going on with the NBA today?
The NBA, it doesn't represent, it's not aspirational for the fan. I can't remember the last time I paid for tickets, and I used to pay for tickets all the time to go see the Lakers play.
And why do so many of the boot-licking NBA media immediately claim that everything the NBA does is a huge success?
These past few years have felt like the overall interest in the NBA has been dwindling. Games that used to be seen as prime NBA basketball, like the All-Star Game, Christmas games, and the NBA Finals are now getting record low ratings. I mean, for Christ's sake, 3 of the biggest NBA stars in the league right now just put up 60-plus point performances in 1 week, and nobody cares. Luka had a 73-point game, the most points in the game within the last decade, and nobody cares. These days, televised NBA games are getting slaughtered in the ratings by the NFL and WWE programming. And this isn't just an opinion, the numbers don't lie. But why are so many people uninterested in the NBA these days? Everyone has their own opinions and theories as to why the NBA feels so different now. But personally, I think the biggest thing that is killing NBA basketball, and the reason why people aren't interested in the NBA anymore, is the fans.
I'm like, what do you say fuck me for?
But before I get into that, there are other reasons outside of the fans as to why I think the NBA is dying. The NBA has a serious officiating problem. For almost every game played, there's at least one horrible missed call. And sometimes even when they do call fouls, they're clearly not fouls. And we really need to talk about all these ridiculous ejections that have been happening this season. Jokic got ejected for this.
Call the foul. He's just saying call the foul to him. Hasn't done anything, hasn't done anything, hasn't done anything. Then the foul on the layup. And now he's ejected.
Giannis got ejected for this.
Block, he's going to take it off. Oh, hey! A hammer like nobody has.
What a finish. Goes up and yokes it. Isaiah Stewart's right there. Gives him a little stare. Doesn't say anything. Doesn't touch him. And that's in slow motion. That's a moment in time.
Chris Paul got ejected for hurting Scott Foster's feelings.
Scott Foster had enough. He had enough after a lengthy conversation. Don't know if Chris Paul had said something different. Maybe he's going to get tossed. There it is.
And you know you're doing a terrible job at officiating if you have a coach on the court ready to fight you. Seeing a shift from a time where players really never complain about officiating because of the fear of getting a fine, but now almost every team in the league has complained about the officiating in the league, and nobody cares about getting fined. Like, NBA officiating is so inconsistent that it's sickening. Blatant bias between certain players and certain teams when they're playing in their hometown, and this contributes to the lack of interest from fans because the hardcore fans are going to be outraged, and in some cases even stop watching because the officiating is so blatantly horrible. And for the casual fans, it just feeds into the narrative of the NBA being rigged. And if people believe that the games are rigged, they're not gonna watch it. And this is like such a popular narrative among casual fans right now. Like, you cannot go a single playoff or NBA finals without somebody complaining about it being rigged. Like, I personally don't think it's rigged, but like, you can't really blame them for thinking it because of like how terrible some of these calls are. The hardcore fans are going to continue watching because they already invested years into supporting their teams, but the casuals are just going to be like, I don't want to watch that. And this also feeds into the narrative that the old heads like to spit out, that the NBA is getting soft. Because I honestly noticed that nowadays a lot of players don't even attempt to play through contact anymore. They just drive into the paint, throw themselves into the defender, and throw themselves on the ground. What makes it even worse is that most of the time it works. They get the foul. The NBA has even came out themselves to acknowledge the bad officiating, and it's just like, oh yeah, we missed that call. Sorry guys. Anyways, what about the Lakers? LeBron, am I right? You know, the solutions I have are pretty much the same solutions that everybody's been saying that the NBA should implement. You know, fine referees, hold them accountable. But it's like, you know, they're probably not even gonna do anything about it.
I love when you count me out. 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 Fuck it up, fuck it up, fuck it up, fuck it up, fuck it up.
Anybody else remembers the good old days when you could just turn on your TV on a random weeknight and see an NBA game? You know, you get to see your favorite All-Stars play. For some reason, it really feels like you can't do that anymore. And not just because the NBA only televises a few select games a day. The reason why this is a thing is because so many superstars just sit out games for seemingly no reason. Now, I'm not gonna sit there and judge these athletes for wanting a little bit of rest because, you know, playing basketball for 82 games over the span of a few months is very tiring. So it's legitimately not fair to judge them for this. But it feels like every 5 games somebody's injured or somebody's sitting out the game for some random 2K type injury. You know what? I would have no problem with them sitting out these games during the regular season. It meant that everybody would be healthy for the playoffs. But how do you sit out like 30 games in the season and when the playoffs come around, you're still too banged up to play? How does it work? Like, are these niggas made out of glass bones and paper skins? Are you Tua? I'm sorry guys, that was just some pent up emotion as a Dolphins fan. Sorry you had to see that. But let's get into the real reason why I made this video. I believe that the number one thing killing the NBA right now is the NBA media and the NBA fans.
This is the problem with social media. And so the blow up of our game is amazing. But the other part of the blow up of our game, we have the most fans that have no idea what they're talking about. Because the game is such a likable sport, and you can connect the players, you can see us, ain't no helmets, you can come sit right there, you can fall in your lap, you can touch them. But the disrespect gotta stop. You gotta do you can't talk basketball with everybody. And you're starting to learn that, right? It's a bunch of people that think they know basketball, talking basketball, and it's bad.
The point that I'm trying to make is that sports media, specifically NBA sports media, has turned NBA fans into the most insufferable people on earth. Embiid scoring 70 points as a big man in the modern era is honestly incredible, but instead of acknowledging this, most fans are trying to downplay or downright invalidate his performance. Because of the NBA media, the average casual fan is more interested in pointless narratives and debates than they are in actual basketball. In fact, most people that call themselves NBA fans these days are not even basketball fans. They're just a fan of their favorite players. A prime example of this is how pissed off people were that we got a Miami Heat and Denver Nuggets finals instead of a Celtics versus Lakers finals. Instead of seeing two teams that clearly beat some of the best competition in their respective conferences, they were so hyped up to see a hypothetical dream match between two of the most popular teams in the NBA. They didn't care about who deserved to be in the NBA Finals. And for the most part, I only really see NBA fans behave this way. All this toxic behavior within the NBA community just goes back to the NBA media and how they present their product. The NBA media shows blatant favoritism towards certain players and teams. Let's talk about the fact that you can't turn on the ESPN for any day of the week without seeing a LeBron versus MJ debate for the 1,000th time that week. Let's talk about the fact that the Celtics have been considered favorites to win the NBA Finals for the past 4 years, despite the fact that they consistently stumble their way through the playoffs, barely beating teams that they should honestly have no problems beating and then getting dropped off by a team that's supposedly the underdog. Let's talk about the fact that ESPN constantly runs segments on the Lakers, even if they're doing absolutely horrible during that point of the season, and completely disregard teams like the Timberwolves and the Nuggets, only for the Lakers to get bounced off in the second round. You could turn on the TV right now, change the channel to ESPN, and I guarantee you that they're running a segment on if the Lakers can make the playoffs. I understand that some of these things are necessary in order to bring more interest to the league, league, the level that they're doing it at is obviously not working because they're only putting a spotlight on certain players, and whenever these players aren't around or they're injured, the fans are disappointed. I really wonder what they're gonna do when LeBron, KD, Curry, and all the others retire, because they're really not marketing anybody else like that. I guess Tatum, but like once he loses, everybody turns on him. But at this point, whether intentional or not, what the NBA media is doing is just creating unnecessary division and conflict between fans. These days you can't see like both MJ and LeBron, or you like both Curry and LeBron. You have to pick one or the other. And it's honestly ruining the enjoyment of NBA basketball for me. Like, I don't have a problem with rivalries because they make stuff more entertaining, but why do we have to turn everything into a pointless debate? But to end it off, the whole point of my argument is that people are valuing popularity and media-driven narratives more than the actual sport of basketball, and it's killing the NBA.